Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing well and having a fantastic week. In today's video, we are doing a series with my good friend Dr. Jason Crean, where we are debunking parrot food myths and answering some of the most commonly asked parrot nutrition questions. So really excited to dive in. There's going to be lots of videos like this, so make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss any of them. But Jason, for anyone who's unfamiliar with you, would you mind just introducing yourself for everyone?
Sure. My name's Jason Crean. I am an aviculturist. I've had birds since I was 12, and that was a very, very long time ago. And I have been interested in animal nutrition so much so that that's really what drove me to become a biologist. I currently teach biology topics at the university level. I teach courses in animal nutrition, zoo biology, evolutionary biology, to name a few. And I love talking about bird food.
Awesome. Well, with that in mind, let's dive straight in. So in today's video, we're talking all about portion sizes. It's something that people do struggle with. They're not sure how much to feed. And some people, get really stressed and like, how many grams of broccoli should I feed? And what percentage of, spinach should I feed? And how many seeds should I feed specifically? And it can get quite confusing. So we're going to dive all into portion sizes today and what the best kind of guidelines are. So Jason, take it away.
So I'll just start with micromanagement. Don't micromanage your bird's diet. We all know that 90% of it ends up on the floor anyway. So don't micromanage. You have no way of knowing the exact amounts that are going into your bird. Okay. Now, what's amazing about parrots is they're opportunistic feeders. And that means that they eat whatever they can find, and they can extract nutrients very, very efficiently from a lot of foods that are tough, that we can't digest, for example. So they can get a lot of nutrient out of very little food and do well on that. So don't worry that your bird's going to starve. If you have a budgie at home, or you have a parrotlet at home, or a cockatiel, they don't need 5 pounds of food in a bowl sitting there 24 hours a day. They don't need that. You're doing your bird a disservice. So that being said, I normally recommend fresh food in the morning with no access to dry food in the morning. So I take that out at night right before bed. So they don't have it. The first food that they see in the morning is my fresh food. That's soaked and sprouted items. And I know you have a video on sprouting. You all should check that out. Fruit and veg. And fruit, 15 to 20% of the total diet is more than enough fruit, way more than enough fruit. Focus on veg, which could include leafy greens. Microgreens are incredibly nutrient dense. So you can grow those right on your windowsill, regardless of where you live.
I've got a video on that as well.
Just please try it. It's so simple. Even the brownest of thumbs can grow microgreens very simply within a week. And chopped chopped peppers with the seeds and things like that. Like you can really pea pods, all kinds of different things in the morning. But soaked and sprouted items, fruit and veg, like those, that live food, that living food should be what they have access to throughout the day. It will not go bad while you're at work. People often say, oh, it's going to spoil. It's going to spoil. Cooked food spoils very quickly. And I know you know this, but if people leave rice out, for example, even after 2 hours, the rice will start to grow potentially a harmful pathogenic bacteria called Bacillus cereus, which has killed people. But that, leaving that rice out, that cooked rice, is dangerous, and it should not be done. Cooked food, you've compromised the plant's natural defenses of how they protect themselves. And I often tell people, like, plants live outside in the sun all day and they're not molding, right? So like they're fine, to leave in the bowl for the day. So don't worry about that. Stop fearing food when it comes to that. In the evening, after I pull what's left of the food, if there's anything left of the food, then they get their dry food, which would be dry seeds. And we have a video talking about how healthy seed actually is. Some tree nuts, including walnuts, pecans, Brazil nuts, um, pine nuts, for example, all beneficial in moderate quantities, and that type of thing. So they have access to that. Now, portion size, If you're feeding all of these different foods, you want to make sure they're eating all of the different foods. So you don't want to offer so much that they can just fill up on a few things and leave everything else. And that's where portion size comes in. Now think about the size of your bird, and then think about the size of your bird's crop, for example. Budgies aren't in the wild flying around the outback consuming 2 cups of millet a day, right? Like that's not possible. So we need to think about how much food do they need, coupled with how much exercise they're getting, in our homes and that type of thing. And so when I think about this, I use the tablespoon method. So with small birds, budgies, parrotlets, cockatiels, things like that, a heaping tablespoon of soaked and sprouted items with some microgreens and chopped veg is more than enough. If they eat all of that very quickly, or at least most of the diversity that's on that spoon, you can always give them a little bit more. But you want to make sure that they're actually taking advantage of the diversity that's in there so they're getting a well-rounded diet. Same thing with dry food. Tablespoon of dry food, which includes some, and some nuts and some seeds and things like that. One heaping tablespoon of dry food in the evening, more than enough for all of those small birds. Medium-sized birds, like caiques, for example, are a really great example of what a medium-sized bird is. Totally 2 tablespoons in the morning and 2 tablespoons in the evening. Some Amazons fit in this category as well, especially because they're prone to obesity. So it's really good for them to eat all of that healthy, fibrous food in the morning. And then large birds, you have 3 tablespoons in the morning and 3 tablespoons in the evening. With macaws in particular, I often say, and then add a nut or 2 to that tablespoon, because it's really critical that their macaws are getting healthy fat. They have a high metabolism, their heart hums, even if they're sitting in a cage all day, they still need that healthy fat. So that's kind of the rule of thumb that I follow, so that I can monitor how much are they eating. Are they eating most of the diversity that I'm feeding? And then and not picking out just their favorites. And then I can always supplement. But those tablespoon methods, that's a good foundation to start with, at least.
Definitely. And I think some people get a bit funny about raw whole food nutrition and diversity, because they think that birds are going to selectively feed because there's so many different things that they can choose from, compared to, say, for example, a bowl of formulated food or pellets that all look the same, so they're not going to pick and choose. But if you're portioning it right, they're going to be eating the majority, if not all of it, that you're offering. So that's why it's so important, and you can adjust it according to your bird. But one of the other things that's super important as well is weighing your bird regularly to make sure that their weight is healthy. Obviously checking in with your avian vet to make sure that they were a healthy weight to start with and they weren't over or underweight, so that you can have a good baseline. But when you're doing any diet conversion, you want to be weighing them regularly to make sure that they are staying healthy and actually eating the food that you're offering, right, Jason?
Yes, and keep in mind, when you're talking about formulated foods, those are processed, ultra processed foods. Those that capitalize on using synthetic vitamins. Those are not as well absorbed as the nutrients that you're going to find in whole food. And so you get a lot more assimilation of nutrients if you're feeding a whole food diet than if you're feeding a formulated diet. And I don't care what the bag says, there's no such thing as a complete diet. For the myriad of species that we're feeding, there is no one size fits all solution. And so whole food gives you a lot of choice, and your bird a lot of choice, when it comes to how are they going to get their protein that day? How are they going to get their carbohydrates that day? How are they going to get their fats that day? That's really critical. And it's better for the mind, mental enrichment. Nutrition is half up here, and that really helps birds not get bored, because birds should be spending almost all day looking for food, or tasting and different textures and that type of thing when it comes to food. So you're keeping it interesting, and you're doing your bird a service by ditching the pellets and moving over to more of those whole foods.
Definitely. And I'm glad that you brought up the mind as well, because that really does play a part in nutrition itself. Because when we're feeding these really fibrous foods full of bioavailable nutrition, that is going to have a really big impact on the gut microbiome and the what's going on in there. And that then has an impact on mental health. We see it in people. Whilst there aren't super complex studies on animals and parrots specifically, because again, nobody's funding that, unfortunately, it's quite likely that having a healthy microbiome in the gut is actually going to have an impact on your bird's mental health as well.
Yeah, and we see that in our lab. There's a diversification of gut microbiome, the microbes in the gut, and the more different microorganisms you have, the better the ecosystem is in the gut. So that it's not just the mind, it's not just the nervous system, it's attached to all the major body systems in some way. And if your gut is unhealthy, if that biome, that ecosystem is unhealthy in the gut, it shows up in a myriad of health problems.
Absolutely. So there you go, guys. Portion sizes. We're looking at the tablespoon method. So make sure that you are portioning correctly to make sure your bird is nice and healthy and eating all of those yummy foods as well. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Jason, where can people find out more about you and what you're up to at the moment?
So I have social media channels, Dr. Jason Crean on Instagram, which is Dr. Jason Crean, Crean, on Instagram, as well as Biodiversity Bird Blends, both there and on Facebook. And then if you search Avian Raw on Facebook, that'll come up with my group, Avian Raw Whole Food Nutrition, 21,000 plus members strong.
Including the both of us. So awesome. So all the links are going to be down in the description for you to check out. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any of the future videos like this. But thank you so much for watching. Take care and see you later.